What's happening, my friends? My name is Nathan and welcome to Motorcycle Training Concepts. As it's part of my desire and effort to provide new motorcycle riders with all the information they need to be successful on the road, one of those areas where I had to learn on the fly and I didn't have a whole lot of information prior to starting riding was understanding weather conditions and how that affects your riding. So it should go without saying that all the different weather conditions can pose different hazards to motorcycle riders. Without spending too much time on that, I've got a handful of different weather conditions that are some of the more common ones, but just as dangerous. So the first one to talk about is snow and ice, and it seems pretty obvious right off the bat because ice is slippery and you know that, and motorcycles rely on traction a lot more than other vehicles in order to turn, in order to slow down, in order to accelerate. Doing any one of those acts is going to rely on that traction, but to a new rider, the weight of the bike is an uncommon thing to feel. The bike, once you get it going, is weightless, and one of the scariest things to a new motorcyclist is when you are reminded of how heavy your bike is. So when you lose traction and you no longer have that control over your motorcycle, you don't know how to get that back. So keeping with that theme in mind, if it's snowing outside and you fear that there's ice on the road, that should just be a big no-go. It's safer to stay home. If you have the ability to rely on somebody else to take you somewhere, or you have another vehicle, maybe the bike is your second vehicle, or there's public transportation, granted they're not shut down due to snow and ice as well. But the ice alone is going to increase your risk of crashing so much. And even if there's not ice on the road, if it's just snowing and it's loose snow, if the wind gusts a little bit and that snow travels and kind of dusts up a bit from the road, even a slight dusting up from the snow on the road can cause your tires to slip out as well, and it'll act the same way as ice would. Now, moving right along, but keeping with that theme of slick surfaces and all of that, you've got rain. Rain is a lot more common. It's more of a year-round event that could just happen. But in my experience, having a good toolkit for ways to prepare for rain is going to benefit you a lot more than the other conditions that you're going to be riding in. Before I invested in waterproof gear, how I prepared for rain is I would wrap my backpack and any bags I carried in plastic trash bags and wore them like that so that they can keep the contents of my backpack mostly dry. And that would allow me to keep a change of clothes with me, because if I'm going to work, I'm going to need to change when I get there because my gear wasn't waterproof at the time. And besides trying to keep your items dry and your clothes dry and maybe get a spare change of clothes for work, the rain is going to make things slippery as well, so you got to deal with slick surfaces, easy on the inputs, and be very deliberate and cautious with your actions as to not lose traction, because again, your bike is going to require a lot of traction to do any basic function, whether that's turning, slowing down, or stopping. And this is a good opportunity to throw another hazard in there that would apply to both the first and the second topic. So with snow, ice, and rain, you've got things like hypothermia. Think of it like a summer day and you're drinking a lot of water, you're outside, you start sweating, and then you're kind of starting to feel like exhausted, but then a really cool breeze of wind comes and hits you and you start to cool down immediately. But imagine that same concept, but it's not hot outside. So the rain, while you're driving, usually that means it's a cooler temperature outside. You're already wet, you've got the moisture on you, and the wind from traveling on the motorcycle is going to act like the wind cooling you off when it's super hot, so your temperature is going to plummet. So understanding that, another tool to add to your toolkit is understanding the ways to stay warm, because there's no way to keep the moisture off of you except having waterproof gear or driving a car. I can spend an entire episode on hypothermia and how that affects your motorcycle handling, and in fact I might just do that. However, for the sake of this video, what I'm talking about is just surface level awareness of the different conditions to be aware of, and then providing you resources to find more information on that in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the third one, which is super heavy winds. Now, this one doesn't have to be cold or hot or any temperature related, you're just driving along and everything's fine, and then you get a really heavy side wind that threatens to push you off the road. The lighter weight your bike is going to be more susceptible to things like wind. It doesn't have to be nature wind, it could be artificial wind. So delivery vehicles, semi-trucks, pickup trucks, just bigger vehicles in general, as they drive, they're going to be kicking up a lot of wind around them. So if you pass by one of those big trucks going in the opposite direction, the moment after you pass them, you're going to get a huge gust of wind on you. And if you're not prepared for that, that could startle you. Alternatively, you've got nature winds, so side gusts, head-on gusts, then you've got tailwinds. And tailwinds can be dangerous in and of themselves, because instead of being blown around by the wind, you stop feeling the wind. A lot of motorcycling is by feel. You can feel the throttle input, you can feel when to shift, and you don't have to look at your tack as much once you get really comfortable with it. And part of knowing how fast you're going, you don't have to look at the speed, you can just gauge how much the wind hits you. And as a new rider, a lot of your focus is going to be on input controls and other drivers, not necessarily that fine-tuned nuanced stuff. And the last one for today is heat. Now, you know I'm going to talk about heat stroke and dehydration, but the worst experience I've had with heat it's Arizona, so we've got 120-degree summers, and you get stuck in traffic. Not only are you exposed and you're inhaling all all the pollutants that are coming out of the cars. And you can feel it off of your own motorcycle. The engine that you're sitting on is kicking up heat and you're feeling that. Everyone's exhausts are on and you're feeling that. And it gets really, really dangerous because you can get dehydrated, you can get fatigued, because when you're dehydrated and fatigued, focusing on the things that matter becomes more of a daunting task. So whenever you should be in red stage, you're in orange stage. When you should be in orange stage, you're in yellow. And when you should be cool, calm, and collected and riding, you're in white stage because you are exhausted and you're not focusing on what matters. You're not focusing on the other drivers or the patterns and using your critical thinking skills to map out the best plan for your ride so that you can maintain a good position for safety, maintain a good space cushion to other cars, maintain good line of sight. All of these things become so much harder to do when you're exhausted. So when it's hot, the best thing you can do is take frequent breaks, pack extra water in your packs. And anytime you feel like you get that experience where you can't remember the past couple of minutes that happened to you, it's time to pull over and drink some water, take a break, cool off, find some shady area. And then once you feel comfortable enough, then you can get back into it. So now that I've listed out the 4 most common weather conditions that I think can be hazardous to motorcycle riders, especially newer riders, what I'm gonna do for the rest of the week is focus on nothing but that. We're gonna dive into each one individually, bring out the nuances of them, and have a good conversation about how to prepare for them. And this is the kind of information I wish I had when I was starting, so I wanted to offer this to you guys. That's it from me. Thank you for watching. Hope you all ride safe and ride smart, and I'll see you in the next video.